Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending this session. My name is Lon Huber. I'm a vice president at Duke. I lead up strategic solutions and rate design for the company. In that role, I work on rate design, pricing elements, wholesale structuring and analytics, renewable procurement, and DSM and energy efficiency strategy. I'm relatively new to Duke and have a past really working for all sides of the table. I was a consumer advocate in Arizona. I've worked as a consultant to commissions around the country, and I actually worked in the solar and storage industries in the past as well. And today, I really want to talk to you about what we're doing to solve some of our peak demand challenges, especially in the winter. Throughout my career, I've noticed that system peaks are evolving, both in definition and attributes. This is partly because of changing weather patterns and end-use technology changes, as well as clean energy adoption. They're all sort of impacting peak. And because of this, I would argue that we have to shift to examining loss of load probability and net peaks rather than our historic look at gross peaks. And so let me give you an example. In many parts of the Southwest, their systems by retail sales, maybe they peak around 2 or 3 p.m. In the afternoon. But resource planners are focused on the evening, 6 to 7 p.m. So why the mismatch? It's all about supply side renewables. And those impacts can be immediate and happen relatively quickly as new large scale supply side renewables come online. So you can't really look historically. And even in present day stats, you miss it. And you might think that the peak is 2 p.m., but you'd be missing the mark substantially as you plan new assets to make sure that you're hitting your net peak. Now, in many parts of the Southwest, of course, winter is far from summer, so there's no dual peak, but that's really not the case in other parts of the country, such as many parts that Duke is in. And winter is a harder animal to tackle. I've worked extensively in the Northeast and in New York, where winter scarcity events are a real thing. And that's, again, partly due to fuel switching, partly renewables, and climate change, of course. Extreme weather events are hard to predict. And you can have years without winter maybe being the peak, and then all of a sudden you get an Arctic jet stream oscillation, and then you've got several very, very cold and not so sunny days, right? So you have to make sure that you have resources to meet those days. And every resource, whether it's fossil or renewable, acts differently in those extreme situations. So you really have to dive in and say, hey, what are we solving for? And what exactly is the peak? And how can we ensure that we have reliability during those key times of the year? So how can we find a solution to this? I think it's in analytics. It's knowing that we have goals that we have to reach. Duke Energy is committed to 100% clean energy goals. And that transition is going to take new analytics, new ways of thinking, especially if we want to drive electrification, because that will not only increase some of the peaks, but it'll also make outages even more important to mitigate, because there's more reliance on the electricity system. So Duke is being proactive in planning how to facilitate this change so that's affordable and maintains or actually improves grid reliability and resiliency. So, especially in my portion of Duke, where I'm focused on customer solutions and rate design, customers are going to be a big part of this, because it will take a buckshot approach and all the above to meet our clean energy goals. So, diving into it a bit with customers who are going to be, again, key to this, both in terms of supply and demand side. The key is really that unlocking different customer segments, understanding what is driving peaks, what's motivating them, where customers are adopting certain technology, the impacts of that to the local grid, to the bulk grid. And then if you need to reach customers, how do you do that? What are the best engagement strategies? What are ways to really pinpoint programs so that you're getting maximum impact, right? So one of my first projects, as I assumed my role in Duke, which was not even a year ago, was to really try to understand our customers more. And so I had a very excellent technical team basically build an analytics platform with our AMI data that overlays key demographic information around those 8760 values, if you will. And so what I'm trying to do is trying to look at those hourly shapes and just understand what are different customers experience and how do they interact with the electricity system at any time of the year. But obviously here I'm focused at winter peak, and I'm focused on winter peak because a lot of my service territories are moving away from summer and into winter. And so this is just a little bit of the graphical interface of the tool that shows some demographic data that you can toggle between and the load shapes of that customer and of the control and treatment group. You can add as many different attributes over to the right and mix and match, and you'll be able to get hourly load shapes and of course download that data for statistical analysis. So I took that tool and applied it to our winter peak issue. This is looking at the near past where our peak has been and out into the future as more and more renewables come online and electrification increases. So really wanted to tackle this issue. I also hired some consultants that are experts in winter peak modeling and solution and program development. So more on that later. But essentially we use that AMI data to understand what's driving winter peak. That's sort of the first high level layer of what customer class is driving winter peak. And it turns out that it's residential, as you can see from this graph, right? So residential is driving it, so let's dive in a layer deeper. What does that residential load shape look like? Looks roughly like this. And what can be contributing? Are there different customer segments that are contributing to that peak? And I wanted to start peeling layers of that off. So I first started with income. Hey, is there a big difference with income? And actually, there isn't that big of an impact with income. We often hear that low-income customers are low use, but that certainly is not the case. There are some low-income, low use, but there's a lot of high-income, low-use customers as well. So again, peeling that onion, what does that really look like? Where are the differences between the average customer and a low, moderate income customer? And really, they're very similar. If one is right around 1,007 median kWh versus 1,044 for non-LMI. So pretty close, and you can see in this chart that there is about a 0.5% difference in that lower quadrant, but LMI customers actually use more in those mid columns. And so let's understand, why is that the case? What's going on there from the data? These are all early results, right? So this tool is sort of hot off the press, but I still think it can at least give us some directionality before we tighten up everything. But first I wanted to look at, is it something to do with housing at all? And so it looked like a single family home, whether is owned or rented, was slightly higher than the average customer. And this is 30K below customer and 60K below. So you can see how that stacks up. And then I went to home ownership. Does that change things at all? And then I upped it to a full household. So, 2 adults and kids. And you can see that now you're really starting to get more differentiation. And then it's like, what type of housing are they in and what is the age of it? And then when you screen by age of the household, you actually start to see a lot of variation. And you're finding that homes that 2000 and the present are pretty energy efficient. And then there's this big gap between 1975 and 1999 that are pretty inefficient, I should say, and it sort of goes from there. So that was very interesting. And then take it one layer even deeper, and it's, well, what type of property? So you can start to overlay years and type of property, and you can see For instance, mobile homes have by a very large impact on winter peak, right? And that's followed by single family and others. So basically what this is telling a story, for if say you wanted to create a weatherization program, a demand response program for customers, is that, older homes, single family homes, mobile homes are a great place to start to target to get some peak demand reductions and target an incentive towards, right? So it's really starting to break down what's driving it and what to target. So once you have that average load profile, then the question is, well, what is actually going on underneath that average 8760 profile? And that's where AMI disaggregation comes in. And so from this, you can see that we're starting to break down what that residential customer uses that you've seen in those charts. And you can see that the primary driver, about 70% of that morning peak in the winter, is from heat pumps, right? And so this can also tell us, where should we spend our time? Everybody has limited resources, both time and money, and we don't want to be chasing measures that only have a 5% or 2% impact when we've got something that's 70% just staring at us, right? So that's where that data can really help. Moreover, if you really get sophisticated, and this is where Bidgely comes in, you can actually use AMI disag to determine what type of technology is that the customer has. Not only say, oh, do they have a heat pump, but then what type of heat pump, or what type of pool pump is it, variable speed or single speed? That's the type of capabilities that are now available that are just amazing. And so we're using all that and creating a holistic approach to tackling winter peak. We're looking at technologies that customers like or that they're already adapting. We're looking at interactions between those technologies and rate design. We're thinking about what are quick start opportunities that we can leverage right away versus maybe longer term programs that's going to take a while to build up. And we have an eye out for emerging opportunities, or in the case of EVs, potentially, it could be measures that actually drive up peak demand. So, playing a little offense and defense at the same time. And then most importantly, making sure that we get a wide range of stakeholder support so that we make sure that we're really leaving no stone unturned. When you start to do this, you really have to think about how pricing interacts with those different profiles I mentioned and different technology. And so again, with the help of Bidgely, we're able to break down what the common load archetypes are for our system and look at the prevalence of different types of customers, some that use a lot right on peak versus, it's maybe a short peak and so forth. And so this helps with mass market rate design and mass market energy efficiency DSM offerings. We can't always specifically target individual homes with new rate designs, not yet at least. So we have to have some products and offerings. Pricing is near and dear to my heart. So it's sort of marrying up and seeing, hey, how much peak demand reduction do we have given a certain set of behavioral response and mechanical response? So part of this study is really forming how the pricing and technology solutions can create synergies and have a 1 + 1 = 3 type of outcome. So scenario one, we're looking at sort of the run-of-the-mill TOU rates. Maybe there's a critical peak pricing component. In another scenario, we're looking at bill certainty products for customers that want that stability or on fixed incomes. And then finally, we're offering other types of programs where maybe you're not on a full complicated TOU, but there's still some critical peak pricing or peak time rebates for you. And then, of course, there's different marriages between different technology solutions, whether that's a bring your own thermostat, whether that is maybe a Duke supplied thermostat that is rate enabled to handle those new rate designs. It could be a heat pump tune-up. It could be even battery storage down the road. And so with all those analytics that I mentioned, we're able to really craft some innovative solutions for our customers and make sure that we're maximizing the dollars per demand reduction, basically. And this all, again, helps our end goal of getting a very decarbonized grid that's reliable and resilient. And of course, I'd be remiss without saying it takes a village to some degree, right? I've mentioned, it takes a lot of work with stakeholders and putting our heads together to solve these issues and think of where you want to take take things in a particular jurisdiction. And it also takes experts in the field, and these are some of the consultants that I used on this project. And the work stream is still forthcoming with reports. So this is, again, very much hot off the press. But I thought I would share it with all of you and take questions. So with that, again, I want to thank you for your time and looking forward to a discussion.